So I would like to welcome onto the stage for the next session, Kayla Polo, who has flown all the way in from the US to be here this week. I need to work out if she's the furthest traveling person to come to GC Connect or if it's Pete Donovan. We need to work that out. We'll do that in a break. But we've got Kayla and we've got Matt Wilden. And we're going to be talking here about Kayla's story, firstly. And it's obviously titled Help One Senior Leader Find Their Voice, because that's what the GC Index, at the heart of it, is really about. People will go to work or get up in the morning, as you'd have heard Dr. John say, to be potent. That's what's at the heart of it. How do people don't get up to be impotent, do they? Well, if you know what I mean. Are able to be potent. It's live TV, leave me with it. Right? But that's the part of it. So the only way that we are going to unleash 10% of the world's of humankind's impact is by making people feel energized, feel potent. And so this is why we love these stories. You're going to have your own stories, those aha moments, those changing people's lives. Yeah? And that's the start of it. Yes, there's the large rollouts, the big company rollouts, but there's the fundamental part of it is, these personal individual stories. So I'm really pleased to have you here to tell your story as well. Okay, that's right. So, Matt, could you please and Kayla both introduce yourselves so people know who they're talking to, if that's okay. Kayla, do you want to go first? Is that okay?
Hi, I'm Kayla Polo. I'm the Director of Engagement at Conexus MedStaff, and I work with the Rencai group with Matt. We are an international healthcare recruitment staffing agency.
Hi, so it's Matt here from the Rencai group. So we're an organizational development consultancy, so we tend to work with organizations in fast growth mode, so typically where they've got some form of PE or VC backing, and there's a very clear sort of 5-year growth strategy. So Conexus approached us because they were in a position of wanting to go on that journey, and that's how our relationship started about 3 years ago now. As Kayla said, Conexus is an international staffing firm, so they provide healthcare professionals in the US market. But it's a really interesting company because they bring people from all over the world, Philippines, Africa, various different regions, and they give them the American dream, right? They give them that green card, and they really take them and their whole family to start a new life in America. So it was a really interesting company for us to sort of start to work with, because you don't work with many companies where the US immigration system is a critical part of the business model. So I guess the complexity of that was interesting to us. But, when the CEO approached us, the business was in a good position because they could project figures 5 years in advance. So they could be quite forward focused. And he was talking about a merger, an M&A strategy and acquiring businesses. So, we were recommended to him to help the organizational development side. What became very apparent to us very quickly, though, was they were in a good financial position. So I think all the sort of corporate finance partners were saying, yeah, you should go and buy businesses, and the bank would lend. But they were immature. So they had a really good culture of people who were really hardworking and committed, but they lacked a lot of the sophistication that you would want to scale up an organization and not go off a cliff, really. So I guess that was the start of our journey. And we identified very early on that there was no defined senior leadership team. There was no really defined leadership team below that. So really that was the catalyst for us to say, well, let's introduce the GC Index with our leadership development and assessment work around it, because we can really give that organization a framework to help its growth. And, as Emma was saying, create that language and just start to help people understand what building a leadership team could look like. Because I think the CEO said to me on day one, he said, well, I've started to recruit experienced managers. And I was a bit like, okay, well, we need to maybe think a bit more about how this is going to work.
We want to hear your story. That's why you're here. Okay? People want to hear your own personal story, your own personal journey. So can you please take us on a bit of a journey? Is that all right? Thank you.
So as Matt shared, when we introduced the GC Index to the leadership team about 2 years ago, it was a great tool for us to kind of understand ourselves and our position, as middle managers or as senior leaders. I was brought into Conexus as kind of an additional management layer for the operations team. And so I had a director, above me, and then we had two separate groups. One that, had a high concentration of healthcare professionals that reported into them as their employer. And so I was their additional layer of management, and then I had the director. And so through this process and taking the GC index, of course, I learned a lot about myself, understanding that I'm inclined, game changer proclivities, but then also that strategist piece. And so through conversations with Matt, really understood my frustrations, having been there for over a year, was that I felt like I lacked voice and that I was kind of trapped behind the scenes. And so I'm like, what am I doing? What can I do differently? And so through the GC index, it was really quick for me to uncover that, I want to be creative, I want to be innovative, and I was having trouble finding my voice and being visible within the company. And so quickly, Matt and I were able to kind of map out how I was going to approach my high implementer boss to kind of like delineate, really clearly delineate, her strengths and what she could own, and then kind of map my path individually. And so I think, right off the bat, we were able to be really successful. We had a high trust between the two of us, but I think uncovering those strengths, right, her strengths, and aligning them to mine instead of kind of overshadowing mine, really, really allowed for something different to blossom. So yeah.
Sorry, I'm only taking the microphone because people couldn't hear me. I don't mean to interrupt you, but not having that voice, I mean, that's something that a lot of our GCologists will see when they go through profile reviews. Can you just, motivate, what was it like not being able to have that voice? What did it feel like? And then how did it feel once you'd had that sort of revelation with your line manager or your boss? Can you just talk a bit more emotively about what it felt like? Is that okay? It's not on the list of questions, but I don't really have a strong strategist or implementer proclivity. Sorry.
A week ago, I went through the DNA of a game changer, and there's this image there of the game changer comes to the rescue, superhero cape, and is trapped in like a cage, and they're like, boss is outside of it, like with a megaphone, and I'm like, that's the perfect visual. Like, I really felt like that was how I felt. They had hired me to be this added layer of management, be creative, take the, this area of high concentration to the next level, and then it's like, but stay over here and don't say too much and just check off these boxes. And so that's really how I felt. So then once I was able to kind of, we were able to delineate our roles, and I was able to kind of step out of that cage. It felt really nice to, kind of take ownership. I felt like I had this new sense of ownership of my personal agenda, like my map of the week, but then also just my relationships, my own key relationships and collaboration, right? Because a lot of people within our business really valued partnering with the director for different reasons, right? My direct report. And so partnering with me was something different. So I think they saw us as like a better partnership, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and so, the title of this is The Stepping Out of the Shadows, and because, I think what Kayla's saying there is, I was working with her director as well at the time, because we, rolled out the GC index to SLT, leadership, the normal order really. And as a coach, as you do the profiles, we do the initial session, and of course there's that reflective review time, and you get back together to sort of, so what have you been thinking about? What's the impact? And as coaches, we're always looking for that reaction to see, well, how engaged are they with the change? And her previous director, who I had a great relationship with also, you could see she was like, okay, it was interesting. Yeah, I think it represents me. But, she wasn't really committed to doing anything with that. We've all seen that with tools. when I had the follow-up session with Kayla, you could see the energy in her eyes. You could see the fact that she'd really realized her situation and that it needed to change. So again, I guess the game changer proclivity in it, but it was then really, really excited for me to work with her and go, right, let's carve this path together. And so I think really this is the main reason why I thought Kayla's story was really important to share today versus my version of it, because the journey she's been on since having her own personal review and then taking her team on, as she'll talk about, I think is one of the most impactful that I've had experience of work with over the various organisations, you know, I've implemented GC Index into.
We talk about energy a lot, and I'm going to just stay with your individual story, then we're going to move on to the teams. The GC Index, I think it was a lot of GC, I think maybe John Franklin Hackett, one of our GCologists, that first coined the phrase as, you know, the GC is like a map of, you know, what gives you energy and what takes energy away. Yeah, I mean, did you feel that? Was there that drain of energy during, you know, until the GC Index come up, and then obviously then there was you could start having conversations about work that gave you energy, because I think we're quite fascinated by the energy bit of someone's profile. Do you mind talking about that? Again, not on the list of questions.
I definitely felt like because her, you know, her mind was really on, you know, the implementation of the processes within operations, and not necessarily hearing ideas or being able to kind of look around the corner of what's coming. And I have also paired with strategists. I think, you know, my energy was really depleted through having to have, you know, conversations of not my inclined proclivity. And also I felt like she was relying a lot on polisher tendencies that I score very low in. And so I think, you know, the feeling, to your question, of being able to kind of have all of my focus on, you know, game changer and strategy once we had the delineation of the pieces of work itself, it was really, it really fostered the high contribution, right, of what I can provide and what she could.
Brilliant. So we hear your story, but then you took that the step further with your team, okay? And people can see your team up there, and I'll imagine it will probably move us on a bit more detail, more than what Emma was talking about, how this language is helping. But do you want to just talk about what you've done subsequent with your team, bring us up to present day, just talk freely, because I think that'll be something people will be interested about.
So, as Matt mentioned, when we originally introduced the GC Index tool to Conexus, the CEO, you know, was really bought in and was very on board with offering the tool to every person within our team. So we were able, you know, because we were going through a new org design and positioning to scale, we knew that around that corner, everyone was going to get new titles, that there was going to be, you know, changes within each department. And so preparing them, you know, was my ultimate focus. So when we were introducing, you know, the GC Index, we, again, assessed every person within the operations team and utilize that to kind of see, like, do they fit in the role that they're in today, and where could we move them to better align with their skills and strengths. And so that was step one, right, as we positioned for the new organizational design. And so that was a team of 6, and 2 of them moved to other departments. They were, you know, they had a good foundation of understanding, you know, how and why that matched another role. And then fast forward like a year, right? So implementation of the organizational design fully in effect, lost some people through that, of course, naturally. And so then it was like, okay, I have some senior team members who have been working with the GC Index for a few years, really have an understanding of kind of their lane. They're working on special projects that align with their GC Index proclivities, and then utilizing it in the hiring process. So as I was recruiting new individuals, of course, I'm looking at their experience and, their talent in, leadership, because this is a management role within operations, but also trying to create a balance of strength and energy and talent, how they can contribute, and definitely how they can offset me, right? Like as a game changer, I'm looking for, polisher tendencies, looking for implementer tendencies within my team. And so utilizing that as a part of the recruitment tool.
I mean, recruitment's an interesting area for the GC Index. It's quite a big area for the GC Index. We might get onto some of that in a moment or later. But what are also some of the key themes that you're seeing throughout your team? We heard Emma talking about, using the language. I'm going to coin this talking GCology. Someone else said it, but I'm a polisher, so I'm nicking it. So talking GCology. Are you seeing that? What are the things that are happening in your team?
Yeah, when Emma was talking about that was exactly where my mind was. Is just having that common language that you were referring to was really, really important in such it was such a time of change, right? So in that change, a lot of people feel uncertainty, doubt, a lack of security. And so knowing that we were trying to understand their strengths gave them, that sense of trust. I think also because we had a series of reflective sessions, so as soon as someone's hired, or even if they were an existing employee, they would have a reflective session with Matt, reflective session with me, independent work. And so they had that deep understanding of themselves. And then also we were doing team sessions, right? Team sessions with Rencai, the whole group, right? Talking about their proclivities, but then team sessions, internally, to be able to, like I said, foster that high trust, that common language, and really understanding who brings what to the table, and they naturally kind of gravitate to tasks. Like if we're on a conversation and I'm talking about all these future plans and great ideas, and then they just naturally raise their hand for the things, especially the things that I am not inclined to do, yeah. Right? And so that, I feel like, has been, right off the bat, having a whole team was one of the biggest, advantages.
I mean, this is brilliant, right? Because this is a real life example. We talk about the theory, we talk about what we could do, but this is it. This is in meetings, in projects, in stuff, in a quite task-focused business. You've got results to deliver, right? It's not this is a business that has to deliver. So, and it's in that heat of battle, you've got a language and a framework that can people can understand and get to those decisions quicker. And I think I just love the real life story of this one. Matt, you were going to say something. You want to chip in for us?
Yeah, so people are asking Mark and Emma about return on investment, and it's always going to be one of the things it's hard to justify in the sort of people development area. But if you look at Kayla's team's example and Conexus's example, we all know how hard it is to recruit good people. It's a really expensive process, okay? So I believe the use of the GC Index has been a massive de-risker for their business, because her team has they've got the same role title theoretically and the same accountabilities, but Kayla's been able to give them unique ways to make impact that they're all engaged with. And so in that really risky period of the first 6 months of somebody joining your organization, where the initial energy of joining is gone, I, as an external partner who spend a lot of time with them, I'm seeing the growth, I'm seeing their continued engagement, because they've been able to settle in so much quicker. They feel like they've got their own voice. But I think it also then comes back down to, what does the business care about? It cares about performance. So we set objectives to those individuals that are linked to their proclivities and their natural tendencies. And so when we're going through the monthly and quarterly reviews of performance progress, well, it's no surprise that Kayla's team is doing the best. They are the ones hitting the performance objectives, and they're the ones being commended for that. So I really do think that building the GC Index model into that process has a massive impact on performance, and ultimately de-risking things for the business, because she's got a highly engaged team who are all pushing for the next challenge. Brilliant,
thank you. And you can see your team up here. I mean, I love that that bit. I'm just going to stand up. So I'm going to say, has anyone got any questions? So I can. We do. Oh, right, we've got some questions. Right. So you ready? I just wanted to pick up on that bit around the meetings. We're seeing a lot more of our GCC partners, clients using the GCC to structure their meetings, yeah, and that's like obviously what you guys are doing is right. We've got this, we've got to do this. Let's structure our meeting around this language. So really, really, really powerful. Right, questions.
Hi, Kayla. Hi. My name is Meerte. I'm quite new in the community, so maybe I'm asking questions that are not right. But I was wondering, so you're talking about doing the GC index like in the current situation, and so how do you see it in terms of the future of the organization? So how do you align it with the organizational targets? And I'm a 10 game changer, by the way, so that's why my question, I think. But
So I think the biggest, again, like I mentioned, a lot of my team members are relatively new. So of course, the biggest benefit is uncovering their personalized, professional development, and that they don't leave it up to me. Like they're saying, oh, well, because Chrissy, she started in June, so she's been working for 3 months, and she's the highest polisher I have on the team. And she definitely gets a lot of energy by doing polisher tasks. So she comes to me with not only, professional development ideas of her own, right, that she's, excited about, but also how that aligns to her SMART goals. So I think, as Matt said, I do think we have a really great handle on, performance management as a group, and the review, process. And so I think it's just only going to, elevate our SMART goal and objective setting and, cross-departmental collaborative goals. So that's really where I see it going, for the future. Definitely not dying off. Like I said, we have reoccurring conversations, I bring this image up. This wasn't something that just was created. We bring this up and talk through, and kind of just continue to chip away at, this isn't necessarily like a label, right? Like we're not saying, oh, you're the strategist, but thinking about what are the pieces of the strategist, element that we not only rely on you for, but allow you to shine.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. We're out of time, as I knew we would be. We've got more questions online. Would you mind jumping on the Hop-In platform and answering Simon Hudson's question? Sorry, Simon, we've run out of time with those questions. I just like that last thing is I remember talking to somebody, senior executive, but the end of the sort of program, they said, oh, this is brilliant. I've now realised there are people that love doing stuff that I hate. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, that's what that's. But guys, we've run out of time. I knew we would, yeah? Thank you so much, Kayla, for coming over. Thank you so much, Matt. Really enjoyed the conversation. Guys, thanks very much. Thank you. You're free to go.